Hey guys, this is a bit of a different start to my videos. We're about to look at the Rlaarlo 110 scale XTS, their new rally car, brushless thing, and I've just driven it. We've just done the whole review. This video is going to be a bit different to all my other ones. It's actually quite long, but we're going to have a talk not just about this car, but about other options that are out there, and also the way that Rlaarlo approaches their cars and their designs, and even some of the IP related stuff. I'm going to treat you guys just like you're here hanging out with me and we're just having a chat. So if that's the kind of video you're after, this should deliver on it. And I'm going to end with whether or not this thing is worth your hard-earned. I didn't pay for it. I'm not going to put a spoiler in, but I will say this is going to be an honest video. All my videos are honest. I value that over the value of getting, free cars. It's not free. It's actually hours of work to do these videos. But always, 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 my integrity first, getting cars from a manufacturer second, and Rlaarlo know that, as evidenced by some of my past reviews. This will be a big one, but it'll be a genuine one, and I can't wait to share it with you. So I'm going to roll from the start, including my little intro. I just thought I'd stick this intro so that you know what you're in for. Let's do it. If this is your first time to RC-TNT, g'day, welcome. My name's Craig, and I do kind of RC reviews, kind of not. Let me explain. I've got some cars behind me here that I've actually designed and built myself, and a bunch of other stuff from all the manufacturers. I've been playing with RC cars since the 80s, and I really enjoy driving them, I enjoy building them, I enjoy fixing them, and recently I've been enjoying designing them. Today we're going to look at a car that's made a splash on YouTube, and I've intentionally left this thing a little bit later than all the other channels. I think Rlaarlo are onto something here, sending out their cars to a bunch of influencers, much as I don't like that name, because it lets these things get on the screen and you don't have to kind of dig down through websites to try and see, and you don't have to dig through promotional stuff either. This is a sponsored video. They provided this to me. If you are new to my channel, check out some of my other Rlaarlo videos. This actually, I didn't put it here on purpose, but conveniently, this little fella here will make my point. When I get a car from a manufacturer, I kind of put everything on the line with every video. I'm actually not out to make friends with them, and I'm also not out to keep a good thing going. If I really poo-poo a product, there's a chance I'm not going to get another one. I was pretty critical of that little laser nut copy, and it's been actually really, really resilient. But the video itself is actually quite critical. This has been the case with several of my Rlaarlo videos, and I think it's a credit to this company that they keep sending me cars anyway. So they've sent me this, and they've sent me their flagship product. This is the best one that they have, and thanks Rlaarlo. I'll try and do a good job for you. But like I've said to my Rlaarlo contacts, I'm always going to be about honesty and integrity first. Let's have a look at the thing, see what we think. I'm not going to dig into the specs too deeply because a bunch of channels have done it, and if you're interested in this car, chances are you've seen them already. I'm interested in what the whole package is like, what can you expect it to be like, what's it drive like, how's it compared to other rally cars. If that sounds good to you, stick around, let's do it. So by the time you watch this, my last video on the channel will have been this guy. This is the Kyosho Phaser Mark II Rally, and it's another 1/10 scale rally car. I'm pleased to say that scale in this case has been consistent, and this guy is the same size as the Phasers and the Traxxas 4Tech. Pick a 1/10 scale car, even your touring cars. It's a definite 1/10 scale car. This guy, I'm pleased to say, also is. Now these are two very different cars. The literature says this thing weighs 1.3 kilos. I've got the battery in it already. It's a 2200 milliamp hour 3S. Where are we going to pick this thing up from? 35C. So it's a decent battery it comes with. So it's a nice stiff Lexan body. It said 1.3 kilos on the literature. This is 2.15 kilos, and this is regardless of the model. They said 1.3 for both. I've got 2.15 kilos. Conversely, this is a much more classic plastic brushed lower performance model, right? But it's meant to be pretty. And it drives like an absolute peach. Gosh, it was fun. 1.55 kilos. So, if you've been around the hobby for years, this is going to be more like what you're used to. But this thing is refined in a way that to me is, well, I can't speak to the XVO1, I haven't had that yet, but to the TT series cars, this is refined. The phaser is like a whole step up. Now, I'll just put this back. So with that stuff in mind, by the time you come to something like this, expectations are actually kind of low in the performance department for top speed and for default suspension setup and power systems, radio systems. And if we look at just the spec sheet alone, which is something you can do with the Rlaarlo cars as well, they tend to over-deliver on value for money, quite honestly. I have some cars from Rlaarlo that I've bought with my own money. They've given me every single car they've released, except for when there was a change of staff and an email got mixed up and I missed out on the Omni Terminator and on the MK07, tragically. The MK07 is their crawler, and being a crawling guy, I run a rock crawling club in Melbourne. I've got trophies behind my name and I've been doing crawling for years. It's a shame they didn't send me that because I would have loved to have compared it. I may even still buy it, but I'm hoping they'll still send it to me. Yes, look, let me show you something. I have more of the AK917. These cars are actually pretty well built. There's a metal and a carbon fiber base. Now, why am I showing you this? I'm showing you this because both of these guys have crashed at over 100 kilometers an hour. This guy had the front torn out, but it's actually quite repairable. I just haven't got around to it yet. But this thing, the point I'm trying to make here is that they're doing things that are different to the rest of the industry, to the point where I can run a 1/5 scale power system in this thing with a 4S brick on each side in series to get 8S, and this thing will take it with out-of-the-box parts for the carbon fiber version. These cars are endlessly impressive. They really, really are. This thing's geared for 160 miles per hour. I don't have the skill, the space, and the tires to run it at that, but it was an experiment, and you can find that on the channel. I'll have to check that miles per hour claim too. Maybe it's kilometers. Maybe I was going for 160 kilometers. It's been a little while. Right. Now, not all of the Rlaarlo cars are Rlaarlo cars. The very first one I ever got from them was this little guy, which, actually I can't speak to this one, and right next to the camera is the 005, the buggy. These guys impressed me with their durability, right? But then recently when we had the ROG1, wherever it is, it might be up at the house actually. The ROG1 is actually a rebadged car with some Rlaarlo tweaks made to it. I am quite okay with that kind of thing. I've actually found that car to be quite good, and I haven't had any of the axle or diff issues that some of the other people I've heard from in the comments about. It's been tough and it's been abused. Now this, I don't know of it existing anywhere else. And I have a good friend, G'day Yoshi, who's probably watching, who is very much into rally cars, and he's been on me for years since we met on YouTube to say, Craig, get more rally cars. I'd like to get the XVO1, but today we're going to look at this guy. Now we get to the point of this video, which is, this is something different that I don't know that you can get anywhere else. It's got some of the technology in it that Rlaarlo have experimented with and put in cars in the past. For example, their little backfire LED, when you come off throttle, it flashes twice under 70 and 4 times under 100 when you come off the forward throttle. Pop, 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 pop. Like it's pretty cool, like unburnt fuel getting burnt through the exhaust system. That's pretty great. Being that this is an actual 110 scale with premium components, and while it's not cheap, it's a sub-premium price. This is the kind of car that I will jump on and say, yes, 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 let's have a look at it, please. Because I'd like to see, is it durable? My experience with Rlaarlo cars generally actually has been, yeah. Is it going to perform well? There's a difference between straight line speed and good performance. Now, this is ostensibly an off-road car with off-road tires, but this is like a multi-stage kind of rally car, and they change tires for different stages anyway. So while you only get the one set of tires, that's not a criticism. I'm just saying, hey, look, rally cars do vary, and you'll even see that the amount of travel in the suspension is actually really significant, and possibly more than you might expect to find. We've got sway bars on this. I'm not going to get too technical here, but I will say they've got limiting screws in the A-arms here. So you can actually lower it just by turning a screw. You can get it actually quite low. So if you were just on all asphalt, you'd probably stiffen up your preload, but then force it down with the screws here. I'm not a suspension expert. I'm just an amateur who likes to tinker. So some of you guys watching will have your own opinions on tuning, and I defer to your wisdom and knowledge there. But I like that the adjustability is there, front and rear. Now we've got plastic sides in a carbon fiber pattern, and we've got a 6061 aluminum base. 6061 aluminum, or aluminum, is like 90 something. It's like 97% aluminum by its definition. There's a little bit of magnesium in it too, like 2 or 3%. This is a fairly soft metal, but it's a cheap metal and it doesn't weigh very much. It makes a good base for a car like this, but you wouldn't want it as a base for a big high altitude basher. Underneath, before I flip this car over, I'll just show you, there are some little tabs here that if you move like that, and you pick this guy up, oh, they pop out of the side, sorry, because they've got a little locking shape. Come on, out you come. There we go. And it opens up. Now I understand that the 4mm thick shock towers are 7075 aluminium. Slightly, is it lower? No, similar magnesium. I think it's something like, there's a bit of copper in this, but the secret ingredient in 7075 is zinc. That makes these more expensive, harder to machine, but they're still aluminium, right? But they're tougher, and so they're good for bend resistance, impact resistance. My poor old dog has an upset tummy today. Ignore the sounds in the background. So, this thing comes in 3 flavors, 3 variants. We can actually pull the back of this off with 2 screws, and I've done that when I was... Oh no, I'm getting mixed up. I've worked on a lot of cars recently. But it does remove with just a couple of screws, which is nice. It's just a hinge system. This is the carbon fiber version, and the carbon fiber, I suppose, is this middle strut system that is like your stiffening and, I guess, chassis stiffening system. There's just a rail that goes in the middle there. There are still fiber parts to it, and it's still the aluminium base, but that's the carbon version. This also comes with a 3650 motor. That's like a standard size 110 scale motor, and it's a 3300 kV, which is right in the ballpark of all the short course trucks behind me here. I've got something like 15, 16 of them now, and very soon you're going to see the UDR video, by the way, and I think that'll be the last of all the short course desert and trophy trucks before we do a roundup of that. That's coming soon. Subscribe if you haven't. Here's my little segue. Subscribe if you haven't. I actually have quite a lot coming, and I've also got some other stuff coming that you won't have seen on YouTube yet. Several things actually. It should be a good year. I've been sick. Those who know me know my voice sounds it. I've been unwell for actually a while. I got COVID for the first time last month, and I'm nearly better now. It really rolled me. Okay, so this is what was I saying? The towers, the carbon fiber, the motor, 3650, 3300 kV. Perfect. It may not even need the fan on it, depending on the gearing. They're 48 pitch gears, and I think they're chromoly or chromium, I think it's chromium steel gears throughout. The alloy version actually has a 2852 motor. So when you hear 3650, 3650 is the 36 is the diameter of the motor, and 50 means 50 mils long, right? So a 2852 means it's slightly longer, but it's a smaller motor. So and a 45 amp ESC. This is 60. I definitely would think, being that the smaller ones are 3800 kV, this is 33, the smaller, higher kV motor, which means higher turns per volt, is definitely going to need a fan. This guy, being 33, you might actually find you don't necessarily need him. You would want him on the ESC, and that's fine. XT60 connector, but it's a quality, it's the actual branded one, which is great. You can actually pinch that, pull it back, and desolder this. You don't have to cut it if you want to change it, but it comes with an XT60 system. I quite like it. It comes with a charger that's just one of the many, and I think it's actually a pretty high throughput thing too. Yeah, 2 amp charge current. That's pretty mad. So assuming you've got a power brick for it, sweet. So let's just quickly talk about what makes this car special, because it is unlike anything else I've had. And I've got a few rally cars here, including brushless ones, and more coming. Simple things first, we've kind of covered the motor and stuff. There's an 11 kilo servo. One thing I really like in this quick release hinged body is the light kit. And the other thing I like about this light kit and the stuff that it's included with it is that it keeps the wiring out of the way. The board is conformally coated, so this thing should all be waterproof. It's got a 5 to 9 volt output if you want to put your own light bar or something. If you want to get custom with your lights, you can. That would include running kind of like neon or LED strings or whatever. That's what that's for, and with some button pressing cleverness on this, you can control it on the radio. There's also a channel reverse button for throttle and steering, so you can reverse when your little backfire thing happens and when your lights come on or flash. And there's also another feature where if you, I think, double tap your right steering twice, it'll turn your hazards on. There's little stuff like that. I think it's double tap channel 4 and it'll flash your high beams a couple of times, which are captured and in the body and sealed in their own ABS plastic pods, or I think it's ABS. Probably a higher fiber content actually. So light system's quite good. Wiring is actually quite good. It's flexible, and the exhaust part is integrated into the body as well. And things plug in through this single cable, which is positive, negative, and signal, which is talking to the Dumbo RC receiver in here, which is compatible. Which is compatible with that light system. Okay, so you've got some ancillary controls on the radio, and the Dumbo RC systems are very good. While we're talking about the radio, it also comes with a gyro built in. That's what channel 5 is for. So you can adjust the gyro probably on channel 5. It's a guess, but it's probably it. Dumbo RC is a pretty consistent radio system as long as the antenna is kept separate from power, which Rlaarlo and a lot of us learned in their AK917 release. I was getting a cutting out issue. Then you're fine. Now I see two antennas. I see two antennas in this car. We're going to need answers on this. Did you notice that? I just noticed that then. How weird. Let's see what's going on. Why are there two antennas? So the radio system's in the front. What's in the back? Maybe one's the light system, which I thought was just that, but maybe it's a separate modular piece, which would be to help with their production. No, there's no antenna in that one. Okay, so they've just got a spare box in there. It's interesting, isn't it? That cost money to do. I wonder why they did that. Right, well, there are two specs. Let's get back to the mechanical stuff. I said I would. I'll start with the really obvious thing while I'm screwing this up. I just noticed some foam in the top of the body, which rests on top of the shock tower there to help protect the paint, which is great, and stop it from denting. If you get this car, it's not going to reward really hard bashing. I dare say it'll take quite a lot of abuse, and it's a well-built body, but it's going to reward smooth driving. You've just got a lot of body. But she's a pretty heavy bus, and I see good impact protection front and rear. That's nicely sealed. These boxes are very nicely made. So we're just going to talk about plastics for a sec, then we're going to talk about some drivetrain stuff. The plastics in this are very nice. There's a bit of flex to them, but they're also quite rigid, so that's a good blend of fiber and plastic material. I like that. We have compression areas here. So this whole plastic section can bend in on a nasty impact. The sides also have decent protection, and they actually are designed to move. They're not connected at the bottom, which is where your body, the bottom of the body clicks into these things here. They actually have some give to them. And the rear also has a compression area, which will bend in on a rear impact. There is a diffuser on the back, and it is ostensibly carbon fiber, but plastic. It's just got carbon fiber pattern. It's only held on by two little screws. And I noticed one of these screws has the bit from a 1.5mm driver snapped off inside it, so I'll have to try and extract that. I can't tell from just looking at it, but if the A-arms are the same, that's great because it makes replacements easier. You can just buy, one set of two spares and have a full set of spares for front and rear. The wheels are 75mm outer diameter tyres with the word Rlaarlo written on them in the tread, which is kind of cool. Just Rlaarlo, with Rlaarlo every so often, which is interesting. Now let me show you possibly one of the most exciting parts of this car. None of the other Rlaarlo cars of this size have it. Again, haven't seen the Omni Terminator. It may well. And the AK917s, the phasers also don't have this. You ready? Back wheels are not moving. I've got my arm on them. pick up the front, even just pick up one of them. Look, I can move this, and you can hear the motor moving, right? That tells you there's a center diff. Back wheels aren't moving, and I can turn the motor, right? So a center diff really helps the car with stability because the drive can slip around, and as it goes around corners or whatever, if a wheel doesn't have traction, some of the drive goes to that, ensuring that the other wheels don't break traction. If you couldn't picture what I meant then, as the car is going around a corner or going over bumpy terrain, if available traction from the surface and the tyres, that combination isn't great, and you've got a wheel that's already spinning, with no center diff, at least each axle is going to keep trying to output the full speed that you're asking from the motor. And these things happen multiple times a second. So electronic stability control is useful here because it's faster than what our eyes and then our bodies can respond to with a radio, to say nothing of being in a car with a steering wheel, right? When you're driving remotely, you really are, there's like a lot going on if you think about it. The car's driving, you're seeing that information, interpreting it, and then sending signals out to control it. That all happens pretty quickly, but it's still probably at least going to be 110 to 160 milliseconds as far as humans go, because we just don't have crazy fast responses, except for those, you know, I say this in the positive way, those freaks who actually have amazing, I say freaks like statistically, you know, like the anomalies up the very tippy end, like F1 drivers and whatnot, and jet pilots that have a really fast reaction time. But even that, they're like slow motion compared to cats. Although cats aren't great at radio control, so why are you watching this channel again? Right, so this car is more stable for that center diff. The other wheels can't break traction, even if one does, as easily, because that free wheel will have more of the drive go to it until it gets traction again, and then it kind of automatically spreads out through whichever tyre has grip on the road. As a car without a center diff is driving, if it loses traction on a wheel, the other wheel, it will actually spin, and the other wheel will kind of lose a fair bit of drive because you've got a diff, unless they're actually locked. If they're unlocked, right? But in a car with no center diff, the front and the rear are both getting 50% of the output from the motor and the drivetrain. So even if the front both have just spinning, like even if they're like in the air, the rear is still getting 50% of the drive. Now, if you have a car with a center diff, 100% of the drive can theoretically go through one wheel, which is why I can spin this with the others on the ground, and you hear the motor turning. The other wheels aren't turning. So if you reverse this and make the motor do the driving here, this wheel would just be spinning while I held the other three. A center diff does that for you. A gyro instead will correct where the drive is being lost through skidding, because through ham-fisted throttle control, the gyro comes to your rescue and countersteers to keep the thing in check. When you combine a gyro, which this thing has, with a center diff, which this thing has, you can expect it to be a fairly rewarding experience for newcomers. Now, given that it has a gyro and a center diff, you may find after a while that it handles too well, potentially. It depends on these tyres, but that's where channel 5 comes in with this dial. You can turn that right down, which effectively turns the gyro off, and then it's just down to you in the car. Now, the center diff can also be modified. You can take it apart, pull the little top gear off, which is like the lid, and empty that little cup of silicone oil out and put even thicker fluid in. And you can make it so that it's actually harder to turn, so that you get more drive at each end. It doesn't just transfer front and rear as easily. That's part of tuning, and that takes some practice. Out of the box, I don't know how it drives yet, but we're about to, and I'm liking what I'm seeing. Now, we were talking about the center diff, we were talking about suspension before, and how you can use a little screw that's already in these little lower A-arms. You can force it to come up by doing it up, and it presses down on these little fellas here. That's what those shapes are there for. There's a screw on the inside of the A-arm there, and you can tighten it, and as it comes down through the plastic, it'll push these down. So you can lower your ride height in that way. So as you do them up, the car ends up going like that. Now, the other thing that can adjust this kind of thing is the preload here on the springs. The looser that is, the lower it's going to ride. The tighter that is, it's going to compress the springs already, which will force the body back up. The limiting screws are really useful in a macro setting. So if you are on asphalt, you do them up and bring the car right down. But if you still wanted it to be fairly stiff, which you do on asphalt, you'd also then dial some preload in, which is going to want to push up against it, but it's going to work against those screws. Now, experimentation here, go back to first principles. I have a lovely friend who thinks like me in this regard. First principles are just the way to go, because even if you don't have any suspension tuning experience, this could be a very rewarding way to learn. Or even in like high school type physics stuff, if you're trying to understand as a teacher, you want to demonstrate cause and effect, you can play with having preload versus using these limiting screws, which will draw the body down. Preload will coil them up, and you can even, the maths is already out there, but you can even work out how to predict what a car is going to do. And that's before you even consider the sway bars, which are also front and rear here. If you aren't familiar with sway bars, their purpose is to also help keep traction. As a car turns, this is becoming a less of a review and more of just a chat, isn't it? But that's why some of you are here, and I hope you're enjoying it. Throw me a like if you haven't, I'd appreciate that. I value your time, but I also know from feedback how many of you guys just like a good chat. So today I'm actually going to go all out and not cut almost, I'm not going to cut most of this stuff out, which I usually do. I usually cut my rambling way down. Today we're going to have a chat because we're learning interesting things, right? I'll put some chapters in so you can skip ahead if you want. As you're going around a corner, the force, let's say we're going around to the left, right? At low speed, nothing's really happening, but at high speed, the body's going to want to go like that. Because body roll is a thing. You've got weight above its center point. Anything that's above, like think of a double-decker bus going too fast around a corner, the whole thing wants to tip, right? So the purpose of a sway bar in this situation is, as one side compresses, it's kind of hard to see here, but it does actually draw the other side up, just a shade. I hope you can see this. There's the tiniest bit of movement there. It doesn't need to actually have movement to show you that, but I'm telling you, it is there. So as you come down, what's happening is these are getting pressed up, right? And then these, with a sway bar, are getting pulled down, which is actually going to suck the body back down. It's going to actually fight some of that body roll and keep things a little bit more stable. The flatter you can keep your car in a cornering at speed situation, the better, because it's going to keep weight over these inside tires, which is going to keep traction up higher, which means you can have more throttle, which means more speed. And everything's a balancing act. And rally cars are so appealing to so many of us because they really take the balance of, like, you know, a rough and tumble off-road monster truck, even with sway bars. No one's got any illusions that the center of gravity, I mean, this one's not even that high. This is clearly a, you know, a wheelie and jumping machine. Cornering at speed is not going to be its strong suit. But then you take like a really flat racing car, like one of the many touring cars with all the mod cons, you know, carbon fiber, mid-motor, belt drive, all that, even with the locked front diff. This thing stays just about dead flat the whole way. There is suspension, but there's precious little of it. And it's designed to stay as flat as possible, to be as fast as possible. Of course, it's got a low center of gravity. Now, when we're talking about scale stuff, which includes all the actual, you know, scale vehicles here where they've got the big pretty bodies, it's a bit of a different question then, because it's a trade-off. And that goes for so many things in motorsports or anything where you're, it's you versus physics, or you and your machine versus physics. It's all a great balancing act. And that's why there's almost an endless amount of tuning. If you've ever played a video game with Rally, or I guess any racing game, but Rally is just so good because it's so flexible. There's still high speed, but gee, it covers a broad range of terrain. You know, ice, snow, dust, sand even, asphalt, wet asphalt, dry asphalt. It's all a game of traction. That's really what it comes down to. And this is kind of why, just to bring it full circle, why I'm so excited about a car like this that has, on paper, everything. It's got everything. It's really well appointed. I also appreciate, by the way, that the foam is just inside the body. The phasers have a humongous gap. It's a bit silly. So this seems very well designed. It seems well balanced as well. And to get even a quality battery out of the box is, it's really something. Before we drive it, the last thing I'll say is, this is a Rossi paint job from 2013. I know this because I went hunting, because I recognized it. And once I saw that, although Rossi's number is 46, I think. Yeah, once I saw this and I saw the late, great and much lamented Ken Block's, it was 43. These are close. And I guess in true Rlaarlo form, it's not a completely unique product. Just like my thumbnail for this guy said laser nut, because it's a laser nut shrunk down. It still needed to be designed in this scale, but they've copied a laser nut. That was my main point of contention for this otherwise fabulous car. It's really good. I hope to find the same kind of thing with this car. They've not licensed anything, and so it's, you know, instead of the Ford logo, you've got Rlaarlo in that way. You can look at this two ways. One, it's a fun homage to the great cars of the past, in this Ford Fiesta. In another way, it's kind of standing on IP that's not theirs to boost their own little rally car. No question it looks great, and no question I admire the company for making their own thing, because this doesn't exist anywhere else, and that's exciting. I think innovation like this should be rewarded, and we've talked about this on the channel before. I hope more companies are like Rlaarlo. They just make great stuff. They're coming out of China though, which means there's less respect, because they don't have to, of IP from the West in particular, but even of internal stuff. So copying happens, and I'm really not a fan of that. It's also why you don't see some of the really cheap TRX4 knockoffs here, because there's a lot of commonality in designs in crawlers, because there are only so many ways you can make a crawler. And I'm mentioning them because I know them quite well and I design my own. But you can't avoid having some stuff that's the same, right? But just in the same way that RGT, FMS and Traxxas all make a locking differential in a different way, and Cross RC, all four of those guys have a different mechanism type for their lockers. They're not just blindly copying like that HB 1001 Beluga or whatever it is. I've knocked those back, even though they've been offered to me at no cost for review, because I don't really want to. I've probably made a mistake and shown some here. I go out of my way as best as I can, within reason, to not have stuff that rips off IP where possible. This is kind of a grey area for me, because it's an innovative, great product and I can't wait to drive it, but then they're copying you know, the Rossi livery in this case, or the Ken Block livery, which I think is an even tougher one to swallow since he's no longer with us. But if you look at it as a fan of rally, and I certainly, if I've learned anything about Edison and his team at Rlaarlo, those guys are just really into their motorsports. They love it. In that case, this car becomes a love letter to the 2013 Fiesta and its livery. And looked at from that point of view, it's actually very positive. I'll leave it to you, and maybe in the comments, on what you think as far as IP theft goes. I personally don't endorse it and wouldn't do it, but I'm just noting it here because I've got it on camera and I just want to have no implicit endorsement of IP theft in this regard. It is actually a grey thing here, and I'm going to choose to look at it as really as a love letter to these great people of the past. Rossi's obviously still with us, but these great people and times of the past that were defining and interesting and just drawing other people into a really fantastic niche of motoring history. Say what you want about the evils of cars and roads and health and environment, which is troubling, honestly, but motorsports on their own, they're just, I mean, there's a real allure there. And if you're watching this video, my rambling notwithstanding, you probably understand this to some extent as well. You can agree, I would imagine. Okay, so included in the box, you've got spare gaskets for your diffs. You've also got a higher speed pinion. This high speed, I think it's a higher speed pinion. The gearing on the metal version, by the way, is lower speed to account for the higher KV. And also the roller version comes with all the same spec as far as your running gear goes in the carbon fiber version. So if you want the stronger gears, stronger Yeah, the stronger gears in particular, that's what you want to get, the roller or the carbon fiber version. Also comes with body mounts so that you can attach a more traditional body or play around with other options if you can't get a hinge thing going. 2 amp charger, a couple of spare battery straps that are really nice and long, which are great for routing around the battery, which seals it really well. A couple of spare cable ties for whatever reason. As always with Rlaarlo, high quality sticker kit. Stickers for the body and a guide, which I wish Tamiya would do, that shows you where to put it on the body, because on Tamiya you've got to look at the box and then go, where on earth does this one go? This is great, really like it. Okay, let's get this thing driving. I think we've covered everything we need to know. Let's do it. Okay, well, this is exciting. Oh, it's stable, isn't it? Wow. So many cars would roll. We actually need to add some preload here, because this body is already hitting the ground a bunch. So what I'm doing is just winding the front down a little bit, because I need it to not just mow along the ground. But I haven't added actually very much. I've added maybe a couple of full turns. That gyro is working away, which is great. All right, let's see here. Yeah, that's better. I actually lost steering there for a sec, but it's back. It's probably gyro related. Let's just see what the gyro's turned up to. Oh, okay, it's just about off, which is good. I'm just going to trim the steering a bit. All right, let's see. Gyro is currently off, and you can tell the difference. We'll put it back on just like 20%. Yeah, you can really tell. So 20% is actually pretty good. Here, poor old Lana inside, she wants to come out. Oh, this is a delight. Now, where this car is really going to be at home is on reasonably flat ground like this. We don't want the gravel to be too big. Oh, it's got some go. That was a lovely slide. I'm going to see if we can get that in a bit more. I hope Lana isn't too bothered. She's going to be though. That's all right. Oh, beautiful. I overcooked it, but I'm just experimenting. Oh, look at that. This thing is quick and fun. Wow. Oh, dog. Beautiful. Gee, that handles nicely. Now, this little track of mine is not the place for this car, but it is reasonably smooth for the most part. What I'm interested in is how it goes on bigger bumps, and also how it can handle bigger, higher speed curves. My poor old dog though. Oof. I tell you what's fun to see though, that backfire thing shooting out the rear as you come off the throttle. That's really something. We need more preload for this. Can we get out of there? Yes. Wow, I don't really want to kill this car. Now we're just on a grassy area here, and I've rolled it a couple of times already, but not really. She's very stable, which is great. Gosh, this thing looks good. It handles beautifully too. I'm loving these tires. I actually really wasn't sure how well they grip, but so although the body's very high, she's actually really stable. The braking is good. The balance is quite good as well. This is delivering for me on feel. Now, this is not a super cheap car, right? But it's not that expensive for what you get. Wow. Doesn't it look good, eh? Poor old Lana. Now, this is not geared to go super fast, right? It's actually perfect. I've been on high-speed pulls here, like maximum throttle, a lot of this. And for this kind of car, this size, it's actually exactly what you want. Now, the highest speed pinion it comes with will get you up to that claimed 80k an hour on 3S. I don't doubt that. Rlaarlo have actually been pretty good in recent releases with their claimed max speeds. They're very reasonable speeds, you know. But they'll be too fast for this car unless you were on like a big open parking lot with some cones down. And even then, you'd need some long straights. Wow, it's stable. Notice how much it isn't rolling. Timing. But it gets back on its feet pretty easily too. That was the first roll on this grass. I'm just trying to do a little bit of a circuit around the outside here, right? I hope it's been in camera. I forgot I was filming. I'm having so much fun. Oh, Lana. Gosh, this thing looks good. Dog. Oh, this is fun. All right, I'm a fan of this car. It's beautiful. Whew, dusty. All right. I like this car. It's good. I just ran a full battery pack through this thing. It's certainly filled up with grass to the point that the ESC fan jammed. The motor one kept going, but yeah, she got hot. This handles like a dream. Handles like a dream. There's just the right amount of toe in the rear and toe out on the front. The tires are just right, they're the right size. And the gyro on, I think about 15% I ended up settling on. That plus this middle diff in its default configuration, beautiful. This is a lot of fun. I need to get this and the Kyosho phaser onto some wet asphalt. I think that would be a hoot. Dry asphalt will wear the tires down pretty quick, but wet, they tend to last a bit better. And a rally car, when we do the requisite tuning of suspension, harden it up and also lower it, I think that could be really good. So watch out for loose grass clippings. I've just had the ride on out here the other day and it's, you know, there's a lot of loose stuff, so that's going to fill your fans. Be aware of that. But the car itself is just super fun to drive. I've got a link in my description. It's a sponsored link. If you buy using my link, it won't cost you anything more, but I think I get an 8% commission. Thanks, Rlaarlo. And I think I'm also going to have a code, I'm pretty sure I have a code. So look in the description for that. I'll put it in the top comment as well, because that's Rlaarlo's only request. And I'll just reiterate how decent Rlaarlo have been. They don't actually ask me to do a positive review. They don't ask to see the video before it goes out. They don't ask for any of that. They say just be, just be honest. And I've gone to them with concerns in the past. They've addressed them for me, and I've given you guys advice wherever I can on that. So as always, integrity really matters to me. It's going to be first before money. It always will be. I know from my professional and personal experience, I promise you that's always going to be the case. I didn't pay for this, but I'd be hard pressed not to buy it if this wasn't provided. Having just seen what I've seen and felt what I felt, oh, this is definitely one of the fast cars that I really like. It'd be in my group of favorites. Not my favorite, but I actually don't know how to choose between this and the phasers, and I love the phasers. You get a lot for your money in this. Now, I wouldn't like to know how hot that little 3800 2852 motor gets on the metal version. I suspect heat could be an issue on that guy. This thing though, this motor's just right for this car. Speed's good, there's an additional pinion if you want to go faster. If you're running on asphalt mainly, you may find benefit from doing that too. This video is brought to you by my channel members. Here they are, these are the scratch build guys. Thank you to them, especially for helping me go, especially while I've been on sick leave basically for weeks. They're throwing in some money each month just to support me. I didn't ask for that, but I'm very grateful and very happy to acknowledge it. Thank you. And to the other two guys in the other two tiers as well. Thanks, guys. The top two tiers will get to see this video first, and the rest of you will see it after. I don't paywall any of my content, and I have no plans to do so. I also have a website, RC-TNT.com, where you can get my ramblings about various cars. And I try not to make it a soulless article, and I write it myself. It's not AI produced. And you get an opinion piece. It's kind of like what you get in a magazine, rather than just like you know, the regurgitated affiliate marketing junk. I'm putting heart into this project. This whole project it started being a mental health project. And if you couldn't tell from the obscene length of this video, that is really what I'm doing here. So I hope you got something out of it. I hope you're doing okay. Please feel free to leave a comment. I read all of them and I reply to most of them. And I just really want to thank you for watching. I appreciate that. Check out this car if you're into rally cars at all. I think it's actually worthy of your money. Everything I just said notwithstanding, it's my honest opinion. I think it's actually a great car. I don't know what I'd change yet, beyond having maybe some netting over the top to protect it. I am very happy, like surprised at how well this drives. So yeah, good job, Rlaarlo. Keep making great cars, honestly. I'd love to get my hands on a Mark 7 as well, by the way, an MK07, brushed or brushless. Wouldn't that fit in nicely with all these other crawlers here? Wouldn't you like to know how well it goes? Rlaarlo, let me know if you have any plans, because I will make a good job of that. Thanks, guys. I'll catch you in the next one on RC-TNT. Cheers.